Well, thanks for joining me today. We just thank you so much for being a part of part 3 in the Adjusters series of how to be an adjuster. Today's episode is part 3, and that is, what does an adjuster do? So, before we get started, a little introduction. My name is Daniel Brant. I'm an insurance adjuster. Also have been a contractor for 18 years before doing this job. So I hope that you will enjoy this. You will enjoy the time together, and you will learn something together with us. So thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you being a part of this adjuster series here. My purpose and goal is to teach and train new adjusters to do the job that I do on an everyday basis, hoping that you will be successful too. I think it's a great opportunity for those that are just getting started and want a career and are looking for an opportunity, and this is definitely the one you need. Please don't forget to subscribe. If you find something useful in this video, I would appreciate a thumbs up, as that's the only way that this information can get out to those around me and around you to learn more about this trade. I'd love to hear about your questions or comments also in the comments below. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'd be happy to go over any of those details with you. That might spur on some interest for us to talk about what's new and exciting in this industry as it moves forward, and maybe I can answer some of those questions for you. Well, today our topic is, what does a claim adjuster do? So what does a claims adjuster do after the inspection? So we've done all the beginning stages of in the inspection. Now after the inspection, well, you'll get home and you'll have to label those photos. Well, a lot of guys will take little photos, or not very many photos, because they know they have to come home and label those. Now, typically, I don't care, because I've got presets set up in Xactimate that really help out, and I'll show that to you guys a little bit later about how to set up your Xactimate presets. And I label those pretty systematically, so it really does speed up things. I've got a couple tricks I'll show you guys. Those will be really helpful for you. But typically you're going to have to label it's the front elevation, and then you'll have to state no hail damage on this gutter, no hail damage on the screens, in each photo that you're taking close-ups to, that's going to be the item that you're going to be labeling. And every one of those have to be labeled as front, left, rear, and right, and that's the way I go. I work from the front and go over to the left, and then the back, and then the right. And the same thing goes for the roof, so I follow that same pattern clockwise on the roof. And then, so labeling photos is really important, because most of the reports that are right are actually in that same order as well, and they want everybody to label their photos in the order that the general loss report is ordered as well. So it makes it easier for the file reviewers when they're checking into it. The second part we'll do is we'll draw the floor plan. So it is a very important program, because it allows us to be able to draw the house to scale, to input windows and doors, and change the ceilings based on if they're sloped or peaked, to get an accurate measurement for painting walls. So that's really important to make sure we can draw that correctly. And there's definitely a skill involved in that. There are some programs that will teach you how to use Xactimate, and Xactimate actually has a lot of self-help as well. And there's lots of YouTube videos on that as well too. After we draw the floor plan, we will also label our diagrams of where the damage is located. So why this is important is that if I draw a huge floor plan of the entire bottom floor of a house, and the toilet flooded in the master, they kind of want to know where that damage occurred. How far did that water travel out? So we typically draw a red circle around the floor plan of the area where the damage occurred, so that they can get a good idea of how big this damage is. Same thing goes for a roof system. I might want to draw my square for my hail square. I'll draw a red square on the location of where I did the test square on each slope, and then I'll draw an arrow to that square and say, okay, 10 damaged on this side, 6 damaged on this side, 8 damaged on this side. So I'll label that, and I'll also put in right, left, and all that as well, so to make sure it's very accurate. Also do things where you notate the front and rear of things. Sometimes when you draw a floor plan, it might not be clear where the front of the house is or the front of the home is. So it's simple when you're drawing a roof system just to put front on there as well with text. Now the next item we'll do is we'll prepare a detailed line by line itemized estimate. Now this estimate is where your skill is going to be challenged. So when you come through to repair some drywall, let's say, a very simple drywall repair on the ceiling, we're going to do, there's going to be about 8 or 9 line items involved in that. Things that you'll be considering is masking. They'll be involved in prepping the floor for the dust that might occur. So you'll also be masking off areas that you don't want the dust of that drywall to cause problems. So we'll be masking off areas. We'll also then be cutting out the drywall, and we'll also be replacing the drywall. Sometimes the drywall will already be removed, so you'll only be replacing the drywall. Then you'll have to prime that drywall. Then you'll have to paint that drywall. And then you'll paint the regular ceiling. So there's several different steps to creating that estimate. And then if we're dealing with any type of crown molding or baseboard or anything of like that nature, if that was infringed upon, we would be painting that as well. So that's just to fix a small drywall area of damage. So the estimates can get very large. Definitely want to be skilled upon how things are repaired, and that's where the contracting side of things would come in handy. But that's definitely something you can learn. It's not something that is impossible for you to learn. It's just that you need to learn all the different steps that are involved in repairing something before just slapping in an estimate and saying, yep, put some drywall in there and we're good to go. So we'll also be preparing a report. This is something that takes some time. So as you've drawn and you've labeled your photos, now you have to write it all out. And my reports typically are 3 to 4 pages. They are pre-made a lot of times from the carrier. They kind of tell us where they'd like the details of things to go, but then all the fill in the blank stuff is where we got to put in all that information. And the report can be a very detailed breakdown, everything from saying, hey, this roof had a 20-year 3-tab shingle, it was 6 years old, looked like it had granule loss from the damages from the hail. Overall condition of that shingle looked like it was in good condition prior to this. I did find some granules that were in the gutters, which indicated that there was granule loss associated to this loss. That might just be talking about the shingles. And then I'll say damage appears to have originated from the right side of the home, as we did see collateral damage on the metal vents and the gutters on the right side of the home, where the left side of the home did not have that damage. So there's just a lot of detail in those general loss reports is what they call them. So you'll take a lot of time in preparing that as well. Now after you've done the report, you're going to prepare an invoice. You'll also include the documentation for wind and hail reports if there are some, and you might even include a plumber's invoice or a tree invoice or potentially even a contractor's invoice. There are lots of different things that you may come upon. Police report, for instance, might be available if there was a break-in. So those items will all be then scanned and included in your report. And typically the final report is bundled, and there's a way in Xactimate that allows us to bundle it, so it's actually pretty simple. So that would be the final product. I'd love to remind you guys, if you're finding information in this video to be good and helpful, I'd appreciate if you'd like it and check out some of my other videos as well. So I was going to talk about what hours do or does a claim adjuster work. So staff adjuster and an independent adjuster work different hours, so I wanted to go over that. So a staff adjuster, you remember I talked about this, works for an insurance company, and typically their hours are 9 to 5. They're going to work 40 hours a week. Typically they're not going to work on Saturdays. So typically there's no overtime and there's fixed wages with minimal pay raises. So that's something for you to consider if you're considering going to be a staff adjuster, is that some of those prices and bonuses are limited. And what I've experienced is typically the staff adjusters are not very motivated. The reason why they're not motivated is they know they're doing the same job in and out day by day, and they might get their 5 or 10% pay raise per year, but that's about it. So what hours does claim adjuster or independent adjuster work? Independent and public adjuster typically work about the same hours. The hours that they work would be irregular hours. They were mostly there to accommodate the client. So what I mean by that is if I set up a schedule and I say, okay, I would like to be there at 8 o'clock, and the insured says, nope, I don't get up before 9, then I might be forced to wait on that person and try to look for somebody else. The hard part about this is that based on location, I try to do things by location when I group claims together, and if that person's being difficult to not get along with that time, then it's going to make it really hard for me to get claims done in a timely manner. Nights and weekends typically are a pretty normal event. When we get busy, we work a lot of hours. Work late hours, late into the night. There's many a day that I'll work till 10 o'clock at night trying to finish everything up. But the nice thing about that is that the more you work, the more you make. So that's typically the process. It's not like when you work in an office, if you put in all these extra hours, you don't get paid for them. That normally doesn't work. Now, typically you make your own schedule. This is nice when it comes to, let's say your wife gives you a call and says, hey, I've got a hair appointment that day. Can you come home early to watch the kids? Yeah, you could sit there and say, okay, I'll be there at 1 o'clock and I'll schedule my claims around that if I need be. Other things is if you're just not feeling well and you just want to take a day off, then you can take that day off and schedule everything the next day to do those claims. So you make your own schedule. You work as hard as you want or as little as you want. But again, it's all based on what you put into it would be how much you make. So one of the things I've had a hard time with in the past is working too much. And that's because there's always more to be done. There's more clients to try and make happy. But the reason why I do that is that I know it's going to be busy in the summertime, but during the wintertime it does slow down a little bit. And if I make everyone happy in the summertime, then they're more likely to remember me in the wintertime when things are slow. I know a lot of guys that were in this business that ended up having to drop out because they did not have enough work in the wintertime, and so they went back to a regular job. That's a common occurrence to someone who's really not putting their best work forward, or potentially really bending over backwards for those clients in the summertime to make them happy so that they'll remember you in the wintertime. Another factor of the work scenario is that the carrier does put very high demands on the firm, and the firm then has to turn around and put that on us. What I mean by that is if there's a catastrophe event, we just had one recently here that was about 2 hours away from us, and I ended up getting about 15 claims for that area, which was 2 hours away from me. Now that put a significant burden on my workload because I had local claims, and also then the amount of time that it takes for that driving. It was 2 hours there and 2 hours back, so that took 4 hours out of my day, which I could easily, use that time to write claims. Now I'm adding that to the end of my day to have to complete those claims because that drive time really killed me. So unfortunately, we can't really argue with that because those are the same carriers that are providing us local work when there isn't an event somewhere else. But because the event occurred, there was an extra amount of work, and so we have to all plug in and help. So what are the benefits of being an insurance adjuster? The benefits of this type of work is, like I mentioned before, is the more you work, the more you make. And I really mean that. It's not something where you just put in a little bit of time and you feel like you're just being taken advantage of. No, I really feel like when I add an extra claim to my day, let's say maybe regular schedule is 4 and I actually then push for 5. Those weeks that I've done 5 every day, 6 days a week, those were the weeks that I felt like really paid off. Those were really, really good weeks when the checks came in and I saw just this massive check come in and I was like, wow, that was worth it. Now, it really does take a drain on me to do that, but it's not all the time that I do that. So the benefit is that I can definitely push when I'm feeling good and I feel like I can do more, and also take it a little bit easier on those times when I'm not feeling so good. It's different in the staff adjusters phase. I felt that when I was inside that I felt like no matter how hard I worked, there was somebody sitting next to me that was doing half the work, lazing around, looking at their phone, and they were getting paid the same as I was. So it was really a very frustrating time to be an inside adjuster, and I really didn't enjoy that much. And so that's why I moved to being in the outside. I know there'll be a time when I may not be able to climb roofs and maybe I'll have to be forced to go into the inside. In fact, I remember being on one job as an inside adjuster, and there was a gentleman there who was 80 years old. And he had been an adjuster since he was like 28 years old. So he had been doing this forever, and he was doing it the best of his ability now, but because of his age, they gave him a lot of grace. So he had a job, full-time job, making pretty decent money. Didn't have to work really hard, but was able to keep working as he wanted to work. So that was really a good scenario for him. So that being said, desk adjusting can be there for you long-term, near the end of your age there. The benefit also about doing this type of work is you can take time off when you need it. I mentioned that earlier, but that's really a big plus. I know that a lot of guys who work as an employee somewhere really just get nailed every time they take time off, and they say, didn't you just take time off last week? The nice thing is that no one really has to know when I take time off. I just don't schedule a claim that day or that afternoon or whatever it happens to be, or maybe only do 1 or 2 that day so I can give myself a lighter day. That's the type of freedom that you have as an independent adjuster. Is yes, it might make the next day a little busier because you didn't do that same 4 or 5 that day, and then you push them off a little bit, maybe your week becomes a little busier. But one thing I've noticed over time is as I get too busy, I just call up the adjuster firms and I just say, hey, can you hold my claims for a few days? I got to catch up. And they're always really nice and they love it, and just the fact that we communicate with them and tell them, hey, I'm really concerned about it being 7 days before I can get to this claim. Do you think you need to hold off a little bit? And they do. So those are types of things. Now, if you're doing that just because you want time off, then that's not really the right attitude. The best thing for that is just to go ahead and tell them I'm taking a vacation for 3 days. And then tell all your firms that you're working for that you're taking time off. And then that would also be a communication to them, but you'd want to give them some time to adjust. So maybe 2 or 3 days in advance or even a week in advance wouldn't hurt either. Another benefit is that you are your own boss. You can make decisions for your business that are beneficial to you. I knew a guy that I worked for in Texas when I was first starting to learn as an outside adjuster. He actually was hiring other adjusters to do work for him. So he was hiring me to as I was learning, and then he was overlooking my files as I turned them in. But he made a choice to hire 4 or 5 guys and actually sent another group 2 or 3 hours away, hired guys from that area to work his claims over there. So he was acting as a firm, but really he was an independent adjuster. So here's the benefit also, is that you could potentially start acting as your own business as a firm, kind of like a producer. You're not actually going to the insurance company for the work, but you're actually you're taking on more work from the firm and saying, hey, yeah, you just keep sending them to me, and then as long as you keep on accepting them, they don't have to know that you're pushing them off to another adjuster, because you're going to then eventually put your name on that to say that it's your file. They're just doing the work in the background. So some guys are willing to do that when they're starting to learn. It's a good opportunity. I didn't want to go that route because it seemed a little stressful to have to do everybody else's work too and fix everybody else's mess, so I decided just to stay just with me. So again, if you're getting any information from this video that you find useful, I appreciate a like. And please subscribe to my channel and check out the comments. There's lots of information there as well. So in conclusion, I just wanted to run over the things that we talked about. 3 types of insurance adjusters again: the staff, the independent adjuster, and the public adjuster. We also talked about what does an adjuster do and what hours does the claims adjuster work. And I'd certainly love you to check out these other videos that I have up here. They'll be up there for you to check out. If you missed the first couple, definitely check that out. Next time, we're going to cover getting started as an insurance adjuster. The training. What does it take to get started? And how do I learn to do this job? The second part I'm going to talk about is licensing. Go over all that. What licenses do we get first? And what is all this about? I didn't even know there were licenses. So that would be an important thing for you to listen to as well. And the third thing I'm going to talk about, which goes alongside of licensing, is called reciprocity. Big word. I want to talk about it then and let you know what that means. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my videos. More training is coming soon.